Born in 1953 in Patiala, he is a renowned multimedia artist, and his artwork continues to be exhibited and collected from New Delhi to Los Angeles. In 2019, he was honored with Punjab Gaurav Samman by Punjab Arts Council and Punjab Lalit Kala Academy, and was awarded with the National Award by the President of India at the 22nd National Exhibition of Art organized by the Lalit Kala Academy in 1979 in Delhi. A very warm afternoon to everyone present. We are talking about none other than an exceptional member of modern senior secondary school family, Mr. Ranbir Kaleka. He did his schooling from Modern Senior Secondary School, Patiala, and spent his early college days in Patiala and Chandigarh. He earned a diploma in painting from the College of Art, Chandigarh. He spent the next few years teaching art before leaving for London on a Charles Wallace scholarship to study art from the Royal College, which was his home for several years until he returned to India in the late 90s. He's not only famous for his artworks, but also for video projections on paintings. Initially trained as a painter, his work has increasingly animated two-dimensional canvases within experimental film narrative sequences. From his early years, his work has been honored with various awards, exhibited in major cities of the world, and collected by museums, institutions, and private collectors in India and abroad. We, the Modern Senior Secondary School family, welcome you to the fourth session of Alumni Inspirations. It's over to you, sir.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to all the Modernites and Mrs. Sharma and Mr. Dicharso for inviting me. Very happy to be with you all. So 20 minutes will not be that sufficient to adequately cover what we are going to talk about. But anyway, there'll be an introduction for the students to follow up later if they would like to pursue the research or the study into appreciation of painting, or whether they would like to go into art themselves. So I'll begin soon because we don't have that much time. So I'll begin with one of my own works. Then we'll be seeing some other works from other cultures. I think I will begin with, in fact, a poem which I often, recite for my for the students, for art students. It is about understanding painting or understanding art. Now, the poem was written, I got it written down, so I'm going to have a look at it and read it out to you. It was written by Wallace Stevens. So I'll just read the first 5 lines. It says, 20 men crossing a bridge into a village are 20 men crossing 20 bridges into 20 villages, or one man crossing a single bridge into a village. So what that means is that for each one of them, the bridge is different. The experience of the bridge is different. And for each one of them, when they view the village appears different, or there'll be different description of the village given by each. So this is what, the freedom I would like any viewer of art to have, that they have their own interpretation and their own view, as it were, and it's absolutely valid. Another thing is not to worry about what you think about the work. And also, there's no interpretation which is wrong. And the reason for that is every interpretation is done with experience of life itself, which means, that, for instance, this is a cliched example, but it's useful. For instance, if one has an experience of, say, seeing violence somewhere and there's blood splattered, so the color red carries a different significance. And for someone else, who has wonderful memories, say, of the bridal color, red, so the experience would be different. And they're absolutely valid. So just to trust your own life experiences and see the work, feel the work. What's important is feeling the work rather than trying to interpret it. And I think that's how it works, because our feelings are extremely complex. And so the meaning happens somewhere in the subconscious. So sometimes, we may not necessarily know when we like a work of art as to why do we like it that much, because somewhere deep down, your life experiences do connect with some aspect of that artwork. So I think I will not go on too long with this, but this is something for you to think about. And we'll begin with the first work. Okay, is it visible to all?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it is. Okay, it's a large painting. Yes, it's a large painting. It's about 10 feet high. And it's called Boy Without Reflection. So what it shows is that there's a man-child, which one is seeing on the right side, and it has no reflection in the water below, but there are some dogs. You can see the multiple reflections. So it is like there's a play on the word reflection itself. Reflection also means thinking. So it is like letting loose violence. So the dogs are unleashed, as it were. So what one sees here, it's not that one has to actually go into the meaning each time one looks at it. It is one can look at the colors. Okay, where is the red here, and where else does the red come? And then it swirls around somewhere, and then it becomes the focal point, as it were, because red attracts us more. And then there is blue, which is in the distance part of the sky, that creates depth. And also I have played around with different sizes. It's not as if there is one size, one dimension. And also we'll come to another work later where in the 11th century, a Chinese artist said, the painting is not a window. So it has not one viewpoint, which is very different from, say, the Renaissance European painting, where the development of art for them during the 15th century was that a painting is a window on the world, which also meant that they invented at that point, or reinvented, perspective. It was one point of view. It gave them depth of another kind. But in contemporary art, in modern art as well, no, it's not a window. You can have many viewpoints. You can look from different directions at the same thing, and you can fill up a work of art with multiple perspectives. I'll go to the next one. Okay, how do I go to the next one? Okay, now this is 11th century, in fact. Yeah. So here we see the enormity of nature that the Chinese, the Eastern artists, Far Eastern artists were very much influenced by, that the human being is minuscule in that. In fact, here, there is a man who is herding some donkeys. Now, it's difficult to spot it. So it's now, in contemporary times, we speak of, the immensity of nature and the insignificance of man. So where we begin to worry about our environment and so on. So I will show you another detail, because you can't see the donkey here. So these kind of works required contemplation. The other thing to admire here is the graduation of the gray colors, from dark to light. They itself carry their own music, as it were. I'll show you the next one. Okay, see, here is the detail of which was in the right bottom corner of that. Here we can see donkeys, and there are two herdsmen who are, they call drivers, or donkey drivers, as it were. And this is the actual work. So we'll move on to the next one. I don't know where that line has come from. Can you see this line somewhere on the image? Anyway, we will go on. Now here too, this has multiple perspectives as well. And again, the beautiful play of light and grace. Great noise. Hello, if somebody said something, I can't hear it properly. There's too much echo. And there's a waterfall, which one sees. So they're tiny little details to observe. There are even houses here in the distance. But what I will do, because we don't have that much time to view each work, it is just to give you an introduction of different cultures and different ways of looking at art. And I will send names to Mrs. Sharma later of the artists, and whoever is interested can look at the work further and the artist further. Although there are very many more styles and so on, we'll confine ourselves to a few. Now, this is another way. I don't know what that line is coming from, this thin line. I don't know if I did something at this end. But anyway, this is Zen-like painting. So what these Zen masters, these artists did, they would go out into nature with their brushes, with their watercolors and piece of paper. And then they would look at nature and contemplate. And they would keep on looking. They would keep on looking. And at a certain point, they would get the essence of the scene. And they would pick up a brush, and this would be finished in a few minutes. But they carried the essence of what they were looking at. But they would spend hours meditating on that. So here's, this is, Akbar had got the Mahabharata translated into Persian. And this is one of the images from that. Then here too is the same. You see the multiple perspectives. It is, we view what is happening outside. So it's not a different painting which is outside. It's part of the same composition. And then we see what is going on inside. And also what's interesting to view is that what else is happening apart from the main figure of the son touching the father's feet. There is a maid at the far end who's turning her head to look at a group of other women. Now, what that does when we look at that maid, it turns our own eyes as well in that direction. So this is how some artistic devices are used to guide the viewer's eyes. Here too, this is a Kangra painting. Now, I believe if you want to see the whole image, you have to minimize, the right side panel on your computers, on your Zoom. So here also you see the interior of a room. Then you see another space which is outside, but also kind of an interior because there's a child and probably just been born. So there's another interior, but here it is put in a space. So for you to make the story, to connect it, to connect the story. Now, this is also Pahari painting, miniature painting. These are called miniature paintings. Here also, it's not a reality. It's a night scene, but we do not see but we can see these two figures glowing like gems. So this is what the artist has created. He wanted a sensual experience rather than a simply pictorial, descriptive one. And they are wearing warm clothes, and a bit of that warmth is carried to the edge of those hills, which you can see behind. Now, this is European Renaissance painting from the 15th, 16th century by Veronese. Now, here too, it is the trajectory of the eyes, the gesture of the hand, which guides our eyes from one image to the next, from one event to the next. And there's a lot happening. These paintings were large. They were about, say, this is perhaps 15 or 16 feet high. So it would be about 32 feet across. It's a very large painting. I think a little less than 32, but it's a very large work. It's in Venice. I've seen this work. It's absolutely amazing. You can spend days looking at it, and you keep finding new events. See, even the two dogs in the front. There's one dog turning its head to the right, and it guides us to the other man who's pouring wine into a large jar. And the angle of the cello of the man in red behind the dog, it guides us upwards, and upwards we see on the balcony, on the terrace, other people who all with their gestures guide us from one to the next. This is one of my own works. This kind of work, because it is in some ways related to that Renaissance mural painting. So I brought it here to show you. This is also very large. It is, again, 15 feet high. And there are tiny little details which we can't see here. But here too, there are various events which have been put together. And also, as you know, one also says this is not reality. This is an invention. We see a man in the foreground reading a book who's got his feet perched up on a tiger. And then there is a visitor, a small English boy with suitcases behind him. There's a man reading a newspaper behind him. There's a circus woman on a horse. And there's a vendor or a hawker selling some tidbits. So this is by Edvard Munch, a Norwegian artist. It's a very famous painting. It's called The Screen. Now, something to remember again is that when artists make a painting, or even when poets write a poem, they have to feel themselves what they are writing about and what the artists are painting about. So the artist has himself or herself feel the fear. And one cannot do a painting and say, oh, I will make this kind of painting, and this is how I will make the viewer feel. It will never work. You have to feel it yourself. Okay, this is by an abstract painting by an American artist, Jackson Pollock. It's a large painting. It's about maybe, I've seen it so many times, I think maybe 12, 13 feet wide. And he did drip paintings. He laid out the canvas on the floor and went around with cans of paint, pouring them around. Now, this looks random, but the thing is, it has an emotional impact. Each time I go, I spend a long time looking at it. At what part of me it stirs is difficult to tell. It could be the flux in nature itself. It could be our own entrapment in nature. It could be our own turmoil in our brains. It could be anything, but it is very effective. And also something extremely essential is that what we call reading a painting or feeling a painting, it won't just happen immediately. We have to sensitize our eyes. And that means looking year after year, months after months at paintings, at the history of art, at different paintings. Just looking at one and once or twice will not sensitize our eyes. It's the same way with classical music. Listening to it a few times tells you nothing. You have to sensitize your ears over the years, and then you can begin to feel the music. You can begin to feel the emotions. You can begin to feel the surge, and there's no other experience like that. So time is essential. Now, this is, again, in abstraction. What this is, it's called Tantric Art. This was painted in the 19th century in Rajasthan. There were a whole lot of paintings of this kind, which were discovered much later. They weren't even thinking they were doing painting. They would meditate on deity. They would imagine a deity. Then they would imagine, again, the space, the universe, and their own space in it. And then they created kind of symbology. But it looks simple, but it isn't. It's the proportion of each which makes a difference, which has a visual and an emotional impact. Those who know art or have seen art long enough, I shouldn't use the word know art, because looked at art long enough, for over the years, they would find work of this kind absolutely riveting. So that's why it's essential to, if you're interested in art, to look at a lot of art. This is another from...
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Whenever you are ready, can we do a question answer session?
I am almost finished. I'll go quickly. Okay, this is another Tantric Art example. This is by Anish Kapoor, an Indian born, but lives in America. In London. He's called a British artist, one of the most famous in the world. So this looks like a hole in the ground. He also speaks of shunya, of nothingness, as it were, and of immensity. And here, but this is just paint. This is just a painted circle, but the paint is used is non-reflective. But it has an amazing quality when you stand next to it. So we won't go to the next of it. These are an image from one of my video installations, multiple projections on that, but I don't think we'll have time to go into that. This is about 30 feet wide with 3 projections, and it reflects like water. So it is called immersive art. So it also immerses you. You begin to seem you are in it. This is another work. It's a single work, but it carries over. It's about 40 feet wide with multiple projections. These are projections on paintings where one figure walks out of its painted self and visits other paintings and returns back to reanimate and will give breath to the painted one. We have very little time to describe all this, but I have a 20-second video. If you're interested, we can look at that. Or we can just do question and answer. I think that'll be too much otherwise. Yes, I'm open to anyone asking any question. And please don't think that, oh, it sounds like a silly question to ask. Ask just anything.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your thoughts and ideas, which will be really beneficial for the budding artists. First, we have Sukhman Kaur.
Yes.
So, what do you suggest regarding the integration of art with school curriculum?
Oh, yes, I think that's absolutely essential, because I know when art is something, in fact, if we get rid of it in the entire world, human beings will not die. They will die if there's no food. But being alive needs a value. So, so we need music. We need painting. That's what makes. We need everything is art. You know, the dress you're wearing, it was chosen. You know, it involved aesthetics. The buildings, the beautiful buildings we go into, that's part of aesthetics. And also, when we, in some ways, we're all artists. When we go into the hills or go anywhere, we look at the hills and we say, wow, beautiful. Well, that's your eye which is getting sensitized. So this is what this would serve as, art being taught in schools. But it's also essential that the teacher would teach them craft, certainly, craft of painting, craft of sculpting, but the teacher has to discover each student differently. What's the strength, what's the sensibility of each student? That's absolutely essential. Otherwise, you will become craftsmen, craftspeople, not artists. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure. Thank
Now,
you.
Saurav, it's your turn.
Yeah, pleasure.
Sir,
Yes,
what are your views about monochromatic art?
Sorry, forgive me. You have to start again. I didn't understand what you said.
Sir, what are your views about monochromatic art?
Oh, yeah, beautiful. You know, I showed you those Japanese and Chinese. Those are monochromatic. Then one color, absolutely. They also carry the emotions. You know, there are there's an immense spectrum of the range as well, from blacks to white. In between, there's such an immense range, and you can do wonders with that, from total blackness to total whiteness, and the grays in between. Yes, it carries its own emotional impact and intensity. In fact, sometimes if colors are not rightly used, they can destroy a work because they get foregrounded too much. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure indeed. Yeah.
Now,
Sorry, you had
Sukhman,
disappeared, so I didn't know. Yeah, if you were still there. Yeah, go on.
now Sukhman Preet would like to ask his question.
Yes, Sukhman Preet. Yeah.
I guess he's having some connectivity issues. So his question was, do
Yes.
colors affect on our lives?
Oh,
Do
there
colors
he's
have
back.
effect on our lives? But
Lost you again. Okay, read out the question then.
Do colors have effect on our lives? What type of effect do they show?
Yeah, I think, you know, I will give a quotation again by a famous artist, by Monet. He was a French artist. So he said, drawing, you know, when you go out and drawing is our understanding of the world. Even when we distort the drawing, it's our understanding of the world. And colors is our emotional response to the world. So I think that should answer it completely. Hello, Sukhman Preet, you would like to continue with the question in some ways? Okay, we have lost Sukhman Preet.
Now, Arshdeep, it's your turn.
Okay, Arshdeep.
Arshdeep is not here, I think.
I think Arshdeep has also lost connection.
We have heard that colors reflect mood. Do they really do?
Oh, yes, they do indeed. You know, sometimes even if we you open your cupboard and you want to wear a certain kind of clothes, why do we choose a certain color on a certain day? I think that's because it's related to our emotions. Very, very, very much. You know, how we feel calmed down when looking at greenery, you know, and how do we, it's been seen as well that if classrooms are painted yellow, any shade of yellow, students are more alert. It's rather strange. I think, yeah, that's absolutely, it makes total sense that colors and emotions are connected.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure.
Now let's see what Anjali has to ask.
Okay, Anjali.
I guess Anjali is also having some connectivity issues. So she wanted to ask you that what message would you like to convey to the students of modern school?
Oh, wow. Okay. Gosh, what can I say? This is, you know, you have to, I think this is kind of a cliche, but you have to enjoy your time there. Do spend, of course, you need to do your studies as well, but there's so much that one learns from each other as well. And also, if there is an opportunity to speak of other things with your teachers apart from the subject itself, I think that that would be very, very beneficial indeed. And also not to confine yourself to the studies. If you go to the library, pick up a book of literature, of poetry, and you can, you know, speak about that to your teachers as well.
Thank you, sir.
A pleasure.
Now I would request Charanjot to deliver the vote of thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm just coming in here. I would just suggest that since we still have about 5 minutes left on the meeting time, so you know, when we have such a great artist with us, maybe nice if we can utilize this remaining 5 minutes fully. And Mr. Kaleka, you know, you cut short your address. You had a video to show, a short video, maybe before the thank you address. Maybe for the next 3 or 4 minutes, you can utilize and show us that video, and you know,
Yes,
we
sure.
maximize our time with you.
Okay, Jajar, certainly.
Yeah.
Now, that's only 20 seconds long, so I kept a very short one. It's a clip from a larger one, and then I could talk a little bit about it. Then I could talk about some of my other video works, but you tell me when the time is up, okay?
Sure, sir.
On the behalf of entire modern school, I would express
No.
I'm going to show my video.
Yeah. Mr. Kaleka is going to continue for another 3 minutes or so, and then you can thank him.
Yeah, there we are. This is a video clip. That's it. So it was really brief, just one 20-second clip from a longish video artwork. This work was called Forest. And the forest symbolically stands for very many things. It has its darkness as well, but it is also a space of discovery. And you have to find your way through a forest, but also it gives us so much. It gives us the herbs, it gives us medicinal values and so on. Also, we know it clears our environment as well, the air we breathe. So apart from that, so here I put what would kind of a bookshelf, what would symbolize kind of a library. And now the lion. Now also in art, what makes a difference is how you use the context in which you use an element. For instance, a lion elsewhere would be seen as a symbol of ferocity or of courage and so on. Here it was in the video, a guardian of knowledge. So how the video continues is that how nature is somehow controlled utilized by scientists, and but for its benefit, but also the same knowledge which is derived through capturing the power of nature, as we know in atomic and hydrogen bombs. It can also cause destruction. So this was what the video was about. My other videos in which I project videos onto paintings. In fact, here too, the forest was painted and there's a projection on it. There are quite a few things happening in those works. One of the main things is play of time. Now, painting itself carries time in it. Although painting is still, but there is time in it. Time sits differently in a painting than the concept of the moving image, than the cinematic time. So I utilize two kinds of time, the cinematic time of movement and the still, not the still time, or the time as it sits in a painting. For instance, if we see a person at a door in a painting, a narrative is built in our heads that this person is going to walk out of the door, or has this person just walked into the room? So there's always a narrative associated, and narratives only happen in time.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Now
Sorry, I'm interrupting
I have come
again.
to my end of the talk.
We are running short of time, so I would request
Okay.
Charan to deliver the vote of thanks.